Now, I want to take you to Sri Lanka. The IMF decides today on a $2.9 billion bailout package for the country. Now, that's nearly a year after negotiations with Sri Lanka and its creditors. Sri Lanka's foreign minister who led the negotiations says that he expects the country to return to economic growth next year, after the country experienced its worst economic crisis in 2022. In an exclusive interview with the BBC, Ali Sabre also confirmed that the government would privatize Sri Lanka's airline. He spoke to my colleague Archana Shukla and explained why negotiations with China, Sri Lanka's largest sovereign lender, took so long.
I think I understand Chinese point of view also, because they have lent a lot of money over a period of time. They have a perspective saying that in principle, they are not against the debt sustainability or discussion on that part, but what they are saying is, for that, everybody else should also take part. That means including the IMF, World Bank, IDB, like the multilateral. So that differences of opinion as to how the debt they should be restructured was probably the sticking point.
Do you believe now that China has come forward with this sort of an assurance, they are open to writing off some of the loans that Sri Lanka owes to Chinese banks?
I thought that's a little premature for us to discuss. So one thing that we are certain within our mind is that all the bilateral creditors will be treated equally. There will not be preferential treatment for any country. Basically, what we are encouraged by the fact that they said that immediately they are not pushing for a debt payment, but in the interim, they are willing to sit, negotiate, and discuss. We have the will to pay, but we don't have the capacity to pay. So what we are now trying to do is get that capacity back. So that's going to be a very difficult and serious discussion.
China has proposed further investments in the Hambantota port in southern Sri Lanka. Now, these are again loan-backed, large-scale infrastructure projects that somewhere were the reason why Sri Lanka accumulated this sort of a debt pile. Is this a feasible way to go forward in the current circumstances, these type of projects?
Going forward, I don't think that we will take loans and build projects which are not sustainable, which don't have returns, which don't have a clear pathway for repayment. But we are looking at primarily is investment, and probably on renewable energy, energy security, as a regional hub, hospitality trade, which we have not fully realized given the potential what Sri Lanka has.
Some of the tougher measures and reforms you've taken, like the tax hikes or the cut in subsidies for fuel and electricity, more such measures are in store going forward to achieve your tough targets?
I think the worst is over. The most of the tough decisions we have already taken. Some of them that you mentioned, tax hike. We cannot hike the tax anything more than that, but we can probably expand the tax net. The electricity and the fuel formula is there, so we'll continue with that formula. If the rupee strengthens, if the world price goes down, that benefit should be passed down to the ultimate customer and the consumer. So bad times are relatively over, but tough reforms are still there. And of course, SOE reforms and public sector reforms and digitalization are some of our priorities in order to attract investment.
Are we asking too much from the Sri Lankans to manage right now?
We have lived beyond our means, so therefore, whether we like it or not, these difficult measures which may be very unpopular need to be taken. Last year, Sri Lanka was one of the lowest revenue collector in the world in terms of GDP, just 8.3%. It's a difficult communication task, I understand that. But luckily, most of them, other than politically motivated unions and trade unions, have understood that. And I know they are not happy, but they also understand we have no choice.
Now, before